There are 4 scenes in the following demonstration, and each of them are based on the different roles of the user who will be accessing the website. The first one is an anonymous site visitor, someone who doesn't log in and comes to our site to find some information. The second one is the site owner. We'll take a look at some of the tools and capabilities that are available to the person who will be delivering content to the site. The third scene will be an authenticated site visitor, someone who has a user ID on our site. We'll take a look at some of the additional capabilities that they have, particularly around filling out forms and submitting them for processing. And finally, we'll take a look at the role of the application developer and some of the tools that are available to him or her for creating the web applications that we see on the site. So our anonymous site visitor is going to visit the site to get some information that's going to help them get their job done. So let's take a look at what that's going to look like. So my name is Curious Contractor. I work for a company called Bob's Bullets, and I have a new role at Bob's Bullets, and it is to ensure that the products that we're going to ship out of the U.S. comply with the ITAR regulations that are managed by the U.S. State Department's Directorate of Defense Trade Control. So when I come to the site to get more information on what I need to do to be compliant, I see some advertisings come by, and sure enough there's ensuring ITAR compliance. That's what D-Trade does, so I can learn more about that by following the links in this banner that D-Trade has put up here. The first thing I want to do, though, I'm interested in exporting things to a specific country, so I'm going to click over the country policies. I'm going to find a list of all the current export policies and embargoes that are in force right now. So that's going to be interesting to me. I'll find my country in the list. And also here's a defense trade overview content or information article. So let me download that. And yeah, that's a PDF file that I'm going to find useful. So I've saved that for later. I'll view that when I'm not online. And let's go over to the D-Trade channel now, because that looks like it might be a place where I could get more information. And sure enough, here's some videos that I can watch. This particular one might be very useful at the top, the ITAR process explained. And I can put these videos right in the context of my browser. But I don't have time to do this right now while I'm at my desk. I'm going to view this later when I'm on the go. So I'm going to just bookmark this site and view it on my tablet a little bit later. So here I am on my tablet, and you'll notice that it's the same website is being displayed on my mobile device. I don't need to change the URL, but a couple things to point out. The banner is now different right here. It's been resized to take advantage to compensate for the more limited screen real estate. The navigation has been compacted a little bit. It's not tabs across the top, so I can navigate the site in a way that's a little bit more effective on a mobile device. And here's that page I bookmarked for that video, so now that I'm not at my desk I can play this right off my tablet. So as the anonymous site visitor, I was able to come to the D-Trade website and find information that I needed in order to get my job done. Specifically information around what it would take to understand the ITAR process and what it would take to be ITAR compliant. I downloaded some content off the site that I could view for when I'm not online, and I also bookmarked some videos that I could watch from my tablet later. So the next thing we want to do is take a look at the site owner and some of the tools that are available to that individual for creating new content, managing the content information that's already there. So now I'm going to log into the site. I've already logged into the site as this website owner. So let's take a look at some of the things that I can do. The first thing we notice is right off the bat, this word is misspelled. So I want to fix that. I want to do that quickly and easily without having to engage IT support to do that. So let me click on the edit mode. And now I can edit all the content that we see here. So if I hover over this article, I can go into edit mode right here on the page. In this editor that was on the preview of the changes. So let me just change that K to a C here in the design mode and save that change. We'll even go up to the top and save it and go back into view mode. So now we see on the live side, I've just quickly made that spelling correction. I didn't have to ask anybody for my help in doing that. If I click under our services, currently D-Trade's advertising or explaining two different things that they have available, what D-Trade is in general, and then marry this online service for tracking submissions of requests to D-Trade. I want to create a new one. We're gonna be offering now the ability to fill out these commodity jurisdiction requests online. So I want to put some more information on our site and advertise that new service to my users. So let's go into edit mode here again, and we see on this page now I have the ability to create a new offering. So I'm going to click that list and I'm going to say, call it commodity jurisdiction requests online. I want to click create, and when I do that, a new article has been created for me with that title. And there it is right there. Now I need to fill out some information about this, and I'm not going to do all of it here, but I'm going to do a fair amount. So first thing I do is I want to give my article a summary. So I click the edit right here, and I'm not going to type it on the site. I've saved this in a Word document for two reasons. One, it makes it easier for me to demonstrate without you watching me type, but also it's really more realistic to how people are probably going to behave, right? They're probably not going to create a lot of new content and articles on the site, although they certainly can. They're probably going to use the editor of their choice to write the text, and then they're going to want to publish it somewhere. Either way, we support either model. So I've done the summary. Now let me copy the body of the article and paste that over here. One thing I want to point out as I'm doing this, I copied and pasted from a Word document, and the formatting came through exactly how it was in Word. So the highlighting is preserved. This is a link to the actual new application. You see the bullets here. So that's really nice that all that formatting is preserved for me. That's often a very problematic thing when you're switching tools. I'm happy to see that I don't have to fix any of that format. And that's all. Actually, let me do a couple more things here. I have a couple images that go with my article, and they're going to show up in different places depending on whether it's a small advertisement for the article or on the article itself. So I'm going to use the same image twice. I'm going to use the featured image and then the index for a smaller version of it that's going to show. So let me upload both of those. And now let me save this change. And here's my new article. Now let's go back into view mode again, so we're completely out of the edit mode. And now if I go back to the offerings page, you might expect that it would show up here, and it doesn't. So I'll tell you that sometimes if you change the search parameters on the dates for the services, it'll appear. It'll force the indexing. It'll appear right away. But my article is still not there yet, and that's really by design, because we have, unlike simple changes, we have some workflow behind here that's going to allow somebody else to preview this or to validate it, make sure it's right before we make these more large changes on our site. So how I'm going to show that, if I come over to this, because I'm a content author, I have this tab over here called for content authoring. If I go over to the content authoring capability, I'm kind of playing the role of another user now without having to log out or log back in. And we'll see in my content authoring page down below in my web content activity, I have some drafts, and that article or that piece of content that I wrote, that I just created, commodity jurisdiction requests, is in my drafts because I haven't actually published it yet. So now, as an approver of this new article or that's going to go out on my site, I can come take a look at what's written and validate that it's accurate, and we're ready for it to go live. And one change that I will make here is I will make the decision that, you know, I want this new service to be a featured option. I want it to be this the teaser for this, or there's areas on my site, we'll take a look at it in a second, where I can draw users' attention to the recent or more important information that I'm getting out. And I think that this new online commodity jurisdiction request is important enough that I'm going to make it a feature. And I do that only by checking this radio button here, and we'll see what that results in a second. But now I'm happy with it. Everything looks good. So now I'm going to save and publish this. It'll take it out of my draft mode, and now it should be live on my site. So if I come back over to the My Services tab, let's change that date one more time to force the indexing. And there it is. There's my new article in my list, and there's those images that we talked about. And here's the featured news article. So this little portlet here, or this piece of content, I can put this anywhere in my site, this article, this featured news list, and by checking that radio button that says that this article that I just wrote is featured, it'll show up in this list. So I get to reuse this content all over my site by just saying this is a feature, and I can, wherever this portlet is, or this little piece of content, it'll show up in that box. So one other thing I want to show here is under the country policies. So if you remember when my anonymous site visitor came, he was able to see this list of all the different policies and embargoes that are currently in effect. And it's broad information for a lot of countries. But if I know something about my site visitors, based on their profile or where they're coming from, I can target content that's specific to them. So in this case, I want to show you how I can take this general information that's for lots of different countries, and I can choose only the current policy or embargo for China, for example, where some of my users are from. So let me go back into edit mode again, and we'll notice that when I hover over this content spot, that there really are two pieces of content here. The one that's displayed is the country policies, but I also have something that says People's Republic of China. So that's the content that's going to be displayed when my site visitor is from China. So how do I want to know what that looks like, how that behaves? Well, under my while I'm in edit mode, if I click this more button here, I have the choice to preview this page as a different user. So let me make that choice, and I have a user in my directory named Dana, who's from China. So let me preview the site. I'm going to impersonate her. I don't need to know what her user ID is or password. I can simply impersonate her as an administrator, and now I see that this article has changed. I'm on the same page. I'm on the country policies page. But now, instead of a lot of general information, I'm only going to show her the article about the suspension notice relevant to the Republic of China, because that's going to be of most interest to her. I know that I'm previewing as her because I see her name here. I can browse the whole site as her now, and when I'm done, I'm happy that the site is behaving the way that it should from users from that particular category. Then I can stop previewing. And I can target not just content, I can target anything based on a lot of different characteristics of the users that are visiting my site. So the last thing I want to show you is a little bit more about the eFox editor, what we call the eFox editor, or rich text. So I'm going to go back to the main page here again. And on this, we've gotten some reports that maybe our site is not 100% 508 compliant. That's the disability guidelines that federal government websites need to adhere to. So what I want to do is I'm going to go back into this, I'm in edit mode on my main page, and this is the page that I suspect I'm having problems with. So I'm going to go into the edit mode, right in line again. Go in, and here's my rich text editor where we did that cut and pasting before, and there's a couple more tools that are available to me here. One of which is an accessibility report. So my content author who wrote this, maybe they didn't have the accessibility, that maybe they didn't have this enable accessibility as you type to warn them that what they were creating was compliant or not. So now I'm going to run this report and see what it tells me. And I see, yeah, there's some errors here, some non-compliance pieces of this article. The first one is if I click it, it'll show me the little image down here, and basically it's saying the text equivalent for this image is not there. So I need to fix that. This is basically saying that the alt tag has been left out. So if I click the image and I go to the properties of it, well, sure enough, we see right here that there's no alt tag, and I need that in order to be 508 compliant. So if I add the alternative text and save that, now when I run the accessibility report again, go to my next one, we'll see it's the next image down. So this accessibility checking and capability is really nice for me to make sure that my site meets the 508 compliant guidelines. So that was it for the site owner. We take a look at some of the capabilities that were available. Inline editing, I cleanly cut and paste from Word. I can, for simple changes, for more complicated changes, I can enforce my business controls through workflows. I can save up several changes for approvals. I can reuse content that I create. I can have those featured articles, as an example, show up throughout my site for important information that I want to get out. I don't have to write it once. And then I have a rich set of personalization rules that allow me to target and validate the content based on characteristics of my site users. So the next role, the third role in our demonstration that we want to take a look at, are some of the additional capabilities that are available to someone who can log into my website. In particular here, we're going to take a look at the ability for a user to submit commodity jurisdiction requests. So here I am back at the main landing page for the D-Trade site. I haven't logged in yet, but just as I visit the site anonymously, I noticed this is the new article that was just published around the commodity jurisdiction requests form being online. And this is going to make my life easier. I don't have to download a form and fill it out and then submit it anymore. I can do it all right here on the site. So let me follow the link to get to this new application, and I have to log in to get there. That's only available for authenticated users. So when I do, I see that a couple people from my company have already filled some of these out, and they're already in process. There's some of them are in draft mode, some have been sent to D-Trade, and some have been accepted by D-Trade. For this demonstration, I created a simple workflow behind this where the forms could be in draft mode, and then the second stage of the workflow would be they've been sent off to D-Trade, and then the third step would be when somebody from D-Trade actually accepts it. So let me take a look at one of these. So the draft mode, if I click on one, I can see that that's where it is in the process. If I come back to the list here, I see that this one has been sent to D-Trade, and again, this one has been accepted. So it's being processed by the back end. My part of it is done. I can follow this along here. And I want to create a new one, and I have the ability to do that down below. And a couple of the information, some of the information has already been filled in for me. When I logged in, it knew my name and my email address and phone number. So this was pre-populated into the form, and I can add, I can pull from any data source in order to pre-populate these forms. But let me just add a couple more fields right here as I fill this out. I'm a government, I'm a government applicant. And I can step through this kind of wizard interface, if you will, and fill the information in just as I go in small bites, and I'm not overwhelmed by a large form. So this is a much nicer interface for filling these out than what I'm accustomed to. in a large dense PDF. Let me go through here. I'm not going to do very much of these fields, but I'll just do a couple of them. And here's my description. And as I come through this, I'm on the final page here, where I'm just presented the summary of the information that's been collected so far. And now I'm ready to submit it. I'm ready to send this off to D-Trade and sign it to validate that this information is all correct. So when I click the submit button, I'm saying, okay, this is in draft. Now I can see it to sign it. If I click the link here, I'm taken to the XFDL, or the document, or the form that has been populated with the data that was captured in that web application, that web interface, that wizard, if you will. And we see the data that I entered is all been put in here for me, my name. We can see this is a pretty complicated form. You know, this was a resubmission, there was the prior case number. And rather than having to think about this and do it all in one PDF or even IBM form, the fact that it was broken up into small pieces for me, and the questions that were asked were only the ones that it needed based on my input as I went along. This has really made my life easier. But I can come through here, I can validate that the information I entered was all correct. And on the final page, I can sign it. I can digitally sign it. I have a software cert on my machine that identifies me, and when I digitally sign the form and submit it, then that document goes off to D-Trade for processing, and I can see here that that's indeed what's happened. It's been submitted to D-Trade. So this is a nice, a much nicer interface where I can create, or I can submit the information for my commodity jurisdiction requests on the site, and I can see where they are in the process, and then D-Trade receives them without me having to download different PDFs or fill it all out. So as an authenticated site visitor, I had the ability to not just get content from a site, but there were actually applications there that I could get work done, specifically filling out the commodity jurisdiction requests. I can fill those out online, and I can track their process through the workflow right from the site. So the next thing I want to do is similar to how we showed the site owner could administer the content. I want to take a look at some of the tooling available to application developer to actually create that web application that I showed you for collecting the information that goes into that commodity jurisdiction request form. So now I'm logged in as a Debbie developer, so into the console where I can create and manage the web applications that I might want to put on my website. And the one that the top here is the DS4076. So that's the web application that we saw on the site for collecting the information that goes into the real form. So let's go into here. I'll take a look at how this works. So if I go into edit mode or open up this application, we see a few things here on the left. This is my palette of controls that are available for me for creating my web apps or my forms. On the right, we see that this form has a few pages to it, and we saw that as we stepped through it. This is the applicant information. Here's the page that describes the transaction. Here's the page that describes the commodity. So as I step through the different pages here, they are all made up in the same web application. What I want to show is I'm going to make a simple change to this. I'm sorry, in the center here is the canvas where I can work. Here's the table where I pull back all the ones that are currently in process and populate the table with the columns that are might be of interest. Here's the applicant information down below, check boxes. These are some hidden fields that are used to pass information to that form, the form that gets populated from this wizard or this web application. I'm going to make a simple change. If you remember, well, before I do that, I'll show you couple things. I can save this form as I make changes to it and even save it. It's not live yet until I deploy it. And even before I save it, if I want to just preview, I click this button here and I get a preview of my web application. Take a look at what that looks like. So we saw this in the context of our website before. Now we're only in the application itself. Here we see that even in preview mode, things are being pre-populated for me. And the change I want to make is this state entry field. I'm just going to pick this as an example. I asked my user to tell me the state that they're from by typing it in here. And that's not a particularly nice control for something like a state. You expect to see that as a drop-down list, probably. So let's fix that. So I'm going to close that preview mode. And here in edit mode, I'm going to delete the state. And I'm going to add a drop-down field instead, a drop-down list right here. Put that over here. I'll call it state. And now I want to specify what the states are. So I go into the properties of this drop-down, and I can enter the different states right here. That will show up. Let's see if I can spell these correct. If I check a box, that'll say that's the default one. And if I don't want one selected by default, I don't check any boxes. So let's just save that quick change and preview this. I'm going to only type in 2 of them now, so you don't have to watch me type all 50 states. And as simple as that, now my entry field is now a drop-down list. And hard coding these values for state might be reasonable. The states don't change very often, but it's a very common pattern to want to look something up in a drop-down. You want to do a lookup into another table, and so let's make this a little more fancy by doing that. And how we do that is every time we create a form like this in Forms Experience Builder, services get created for me behind the scenes that allow me to do the common CRUD operations. I can create new ones, I can look them up, I can update them or delete them. So I've created already, if I go back to manage here, I'll show you this. I've created a state lookup form. If I launch it, it simply has the ability to enter the state name. And I've already entered all of those, and so this is a completely separate web application or form to manage my states. So I'm going to go back into my 4076 application. I'm going to use that other application to populate this list. So go back into edit the properties of my drop-down. And here under with the options now, rather than hard coding them, I'm going to say use a service. And it doesn't look like I have this one left from before, which is good. So I'm going to click add a service configuration, and we begin to see all the different services that are available in my catalog from all the different other Feb applications that I've created. We're going to look for the one called for state lookups, for states, and here are those CRUD operations. I can update or create or retrieve them. I want to do a search. This is going to be the same thing as a select asterisk from that database. So I'm going to click the search on that. I don't have any inputs to it because I want all of them, but the outputs are going to be the search records I want, and we have a lot of other things we can pull back, the total number, who made the change, when it was last updated, but I want the actual data itself, not the metadata. I want the result of the state, and I'm going to map that to my drop-down list here for state. And I'm going to map it to the saved, both the saved and displayed value into that drop-down list. Say OK, OK, OK. Now I'm going to preview this change. And I'll see in my drop-down list, I have all the states available to me because I'm looking them up. Now if somebody were to make a change to one of these states in that other application, I would automatically pick it up here. So it's just a lookup table in this case, but the extremely common paradigm for developing web applications. I'm in preview mode, so my change is not live yet. If I want, once I'm happy with it, I would click Save here, and then go back over to Manage, and then Deploy, and that makes my application live on the site. So in summary, for the application developer role, I have the ability to create web applications quickly and easily. I don't have any desktop tooling that I need to install. It's all browser based for the runtime and the development. I can get quick feedback on how things are going through the preview modes, and then when I'm happy with my application, I just simply deploy it, and then it's accessible via URL and available within my website or anywhere else I want to advertise that URL. So I have really quick time to value for creating fairly complicated web applications that a broad category of my users or can from my organization can use. They don't have to be strong in Java development skills. Just a little bit of JavaScript can get me a long ways in this environment. So in summary, some of the parts that we highlighted in our 4 different roles, our site visitors, our anonymous site visitors, were able to come to our site on different devices to get the information that they needed to get their jobs done. As the site owner, I was able to take advantage of inline editing to do simple changes immediately without having to go through a long process to engage IT support to do things like that. And then as the content author, I could write my articles in Microsoft Word and then paste them into the site when I was happy with them and the formatting was preserved. That rich text editor also gave me the ability to do 508 compliance checking, which is very important in the federal government. The workflows behind creating new content supported my business controls. I could batch up a lot of changes at once, have somebody review them and publish them all at one time. So I wasn't always working on the live website. And then my authenticated site visitors could actually get work done while they were there. They could submit these 508, the commodity jurisdiction requests and manage them through the process. And then if I wanted to change to that web application that was collecting the data, that's not hard to do either. My application developers, fairly unskilled ones, can have quite a bit of power at their hands for creating new applications, fairly complicated web applications that we could then make available to our site. So that concludes the demonstration. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.